Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this per a tweet from veteran boxing scribe Michael Woods. Early guesstimation is that Canelo versus Charlo did 600,000 buys or so, says one very knowledgeable person.
When this fight was announced, my initial feeling was that if Canelo could do 800,000 buys with Caleb Plant, then surely he could do a little more than that with Jermell Charlo.
If this figure turns out to be accurate, and the pay-per-view did in the neighborhood of 600,000 buys or so,
Well, that's not bad.
600,000 pay-per-view buys multiplied by a price point of $85 a buy comes out to roughly $51 million. Tack on a potentially $20 million gate.
That's the ballpark.
Per Showtime executive Stefan Espinoza, who ahead of the fight stated projections put the gate at roughly $20 million.
That, with the pay-per-view buys, puts the event at around, what, $71 million?
As far as what Canelo Alvarez stood to make from the fight per Sportico, Canelo is expected to earn at least $40 million and as much as $50 million, depending on the pay-per-view buys. With this fight, his career earnings will surpass $550 million. That's $500 million, and I don't think that accounts for what other business endeavors he has. The tally includes endorsement earnings, but excludes investment income. Last year, Alvarez hired XL Sports Management to represent him in his marketing deals.
Looks like it was a successful night.
Though being honest with you, I expected more. Because it was Jermell Charlo and not someone else. You know, you see what the numbers were for the Dimitri Bivol fight, around $500,000. The numbers for the John Ryder fight, also in the neighborhood of $500,000. Whereas here, he was fighting a homegrown American on American soil. And one would have expected that because this was an American fighter that he was fighting, that would have added some value to the show.
When he fought Dimitri Bivol, this was a Russian fighter that not too many Americans are familiar with. Something similar applies to John Ryder.
From the UK, nobody was expecting John to add that much value to the show, but because Jermell Charlo fights out of America,
he's a homegrown American fighter, an undisputed champion.
And all the hullabaloo you saw about him on the internet, whether you're talking about boxing Twitter or in the YouTube boxing community, I would have expected more robust numbers than these numbers. The baseline for a Canelo Alvarez fight is about $500,000. That's what he can bring you off his name value alone.
By himself.
The baseline for a Canelo Alvarez fight is at or around $500,000 buys. That's saying that Jermell Charlo didn't bring much to the table. He didn't add that much value to the show. I said initially, I thought this might do in the neighborhood of 800,000 to $1 million. That if Canelo could do 800,000 with Caleb Plant, he might be able to do a little better than that with Jermell Charlo. If these numbers check out, then that's definitely not the case.
And another glaring example of Al Heyman's failure to adequately promote these fighters.
In tandem with the very vocal substrata of individuals that talk about Al Heyman like he's this fucking wizard.
Heymanites.
Love all things PBC and swear by them. That vocal minority that really only seems to exist online.
Because in the real world, where it counts, where the hell are they?
They don't show up in the numbers. They don't show up at the gate. They don't show up in the pay-per-view buys. I mean, Canelo Alvarez, these numbers, he's good for these numbers all by himself. I mean, he's good for these numbers with a John Ryder, with a Dimitri Bivol. One would have expected that for all of the hullabaloo about the Charlo brothers, one of them would have added some value to the show.
How do you reconcile it?
I'll tell you how. These guys who love to carry on about how great Al Heyman is and how great these PBC fighters are, they don't fucking buy nothing. They don't spend any money.
That's how.
That's how you make it make sense. You can spit in the wind and hit somebody to argue with when it comes to the Charlo brothers and when it comes to Al Heyman, when it comes to his PBC. Those kinds of individuals are never far behind online, but in the real world, where it matters most, These guys don't exist, and they don't exist because they don't fucking buy nothing.
Simple.
That doesn't mean that they're not watching these fights. Oh, they're watching these fights. They definitely are, via pirate streams and
Fire stick hacks.
they're watching these fights. They're definitely watching these fights and online talking about them.
They're not buying them.
Not even to support the fighter they have so placed on a pedestal. Not even to support the fighter that they have talked up and were backing going into this fight.
Not even.
You guys are useless. That's why I can't be bothered to have those kinds of arguments I would have had in previous years. I know more than most. There's no point in talking to these fucking morons.
Useless.
As it pertains to men's super bantamweight and featherweight news, IBF featherweight champion Luis Alberto Lopez expects Naoya Inoue to defeat Tapales in a competitive fight.
Luis Alberto Lopez aspires to share the ring with Naoya Inoue upon his ascent to the men's featherweight division, though we're not there yet.
Inoue just got the super bantamweight. He literally just got the super bantamweight in his last fight. Luis Lopez expects Inoue to win. He believes the hard-hitting Tapales will make it a competitive fight. It's going to be a good fight. They're both very good fighters, Lopez told BoxingScene.com. When Tapales did the stick and move versus MJ, it worked. Now, does MJ have Inoue's power? I don't think so, but definitely I won't miss this one. MJ, of course, is Murajan Akhmadaliev. Tapales upset him April in San Antonio to capture the WBA and IBF titles, thereby positioning himself for an undisputed showdown with Naoya Inoue.
Marlon Tapales beat MJ in April.
And Inoue made his super bantamweight debut in August by annihilating Stephen Fulton to capture the WBC and WBO titles.
I'm glad he didn't waste any time.
Glad Marlon Tapales isn't wasting his time either. Marlon Tapales already arrived in Los Angeles to start camp for the fight weeks ago.
Several back in August.
I had fears that the negotiations for this fight were going to go the way that the negotiations for the Casimero fight went.
John Riel Casimero, who used to be managed by Sean Gibbons, Sean manages Marlon Tapales.
I fully comprehend the magnitude of this fight. Becoming the undisputed champion is the ultimate goal in any boxer's career, and I am prepared to give my all to achieve that. Naoya Inoue is an exceptional fighter, but I have an unwavering confidence in my abilities and the hard work I have put into my training. I will leave everything in the ring and prove that I am the best in the division, Tapales said.
Inoue is regarded as one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the sport, has been tearing through the weight divisions for the last few years.
Late last year, Naoya Inoue unified all the titles at bantamweight. He's already got 2 of the titles at super bantamweight, and by year's end, he may complete the set.
Unifying all the titles at super bantamweight.
Currently, Terence Crawford is ranked at number 1, and Naoya Inoue is ranked at number 2. Naoya Inoue has already been a champion at more weights than Terence Crawford.
Inoue has been a champion at 4 weights, whereas Terence has only been a champion in 3.
You may be asking yourself, then why is Terence Crawford ranked above Naoya Inoue? Well, it's because Terence has been the Ring Magazine and lineal champion at every weight he's ever campaigned, on top of being the only 2-time undisputed champion
Men's boxing.
in the 4-belt era. Now, if Inoue becomes undisputed again at the end of this year, he will surpass Terence Crawford for not only being a 2-time undisputed champion, just like Terence, but having been a champion at more weights than Terence.
Stiff competition.
They're both great fighters. Inoue himself said, 1 week of intense training has ended, ready to switch on for December. It seems that this whole time, Naoya Inoue has had the undisputed title fight on his mind.
So many weeks after his destruction of Stephen Fulton for the WBC and WBO titles,
His laser focus is now fixed on his next conquest. The 4-division reigning unified WBC, WBO junior featherweight titleist has already begun preparation for his forthcoming undisputed championship versus IBF WBA title holder Marlon Tapales. A date has yet to be announced, though the event is targeted to take place mid to late December in Japan. 1 week of intense training has ended, Inoue stated in a post accompanied by a photo sporting a chiseled physique alongside his team members. I had a good training session and am ready to switch on for December.
The Japanese have a tradition of staging a big fight, a big show, at or around New Year's Eve in December.
This upcoming undisputed title tilt is in keeping with that tradition. A win by Inoue will leave him as just the second male and third overall boxer in the world to fully unify all four major titles at 2 or more weights. Terrence Bud Crawford became the first male to do so with his 9th round stoppage of Errol Spence to become undisputed welterweight champion 6 years after having done the same at junior welter. Clarissa Shields fully unified the junior middleweight division by March of 2021 and twice at middleweight. The latter full unification completed in her points win over Savania Marshall last October 15th in London.
I don't know if the betting lines have opened up on this fight yet, but I imagine that Inoue must be a massive favorite going in.
Everything he's shown us already across 4 weight classes and the fact that Marlon Tapales, skilled and capable fighter, capable champion that he might be, he has lost 3 times before, and 2 of those times he got knocked out.
He retired in his corner after 6 rounds against Bricks Ray, all the way back there in 2009. That was Marlon Tapales' first professional loss.
His second was a decision loss to David Sanchez back there in 2013. In more recent years, in 2019, suffered a TKO stoppage loss to Japan's own Ryosuke Iwasa in the 11th round. Now, it's entirely possible that Marlon Tapales has improved since then, that he is a more seasoned fighter now than he was when he fought those fighters. It's entirely possible, though it's hard to not favor Inoue given how dominant he's been across 4 weight classes and his stopping power.
Marlon Tapales has been stopped 2 times before.
What sometimes gets lost in translation when it comes to Naoya Inoue is while he has memorable stopping power, shocking stopping power, he's not a bruiser. He's not a brawler.
He's not in love with his own power. He's very much a tactician, a technician.
Thus, in spite of Marlon Tapales looking as impressive as he did with Mutajan Akhmadaliev, I don't like his chances in this fight. I think Inoue stands a very good chance of stopping him.
Yeah.
Continuing to make history for his own legacy and his country over there in the Asian boxing scene. I mean, when's the last time you saw an undisputed bantamweight champion or an undisputed super bantamweight champion? When exactly is the last time that happened?
He's making history.
He seems to be doing it in record time. He's only 30 years old. He's already a 4-division former undisputed current reigning champion at 30 years old.
I think my only hang-up with Inoue is I wish he fought more often because he's that good.
And if he takes care of business with Marlon Tapales, he's not going to be leaving the super bantamweight division just yet. There is still Luis Nery, John Riel Casimero, and potentially MJ Akhmadaliev to deal with.
Let's see what happens.
And finally, as it pertains to Naoya Inoue and Kermel Moton, Inoue is a solid fighter. I'll be a lot better than him when it's all said and done.
That's what he had to say about it after his professional debut, after the Canelo Alvarez versus Jermel Charlo fight was over.
Kermel's debut took place after that. Las Vegas, with his legendary proud promoter standing beside him, Kermel Moton exuded confidence that defies his age. The highly touted 17-year-old featherweight prospect predicted that he'll become a better fighter than Naoya Inoue when he was informed that Shakur Stevenson compared his skill set to that of renowned Japanese superstar the day before Moton made his impressive pro debut. Stevenson stated that Moton reminds him of a busier Inoue and expressed respect for his potential based in part on their sparring session earlier this year.
It was Shakur that made the retrospect.
The comparison, if you're wondering how all of a sudden a super bantamweight's name made its way into the conversation of Kermel Moton's debut, that's how, that's why.
Shakur brought him up.
I've known Shakur for a long time throughout the amateurs, Moton said during his post-fight press conference. He watched me grow up in the amateurs too, and with the comparison, I mean, Inoue is a solid fighter. He has skills, he's fast, he's strong, but I feel I'll be a lot bigger than him. I'll be a lot better fighter than him when it's all said and done. And I'm just getting started. I'm 17. This is my pro debut, and I feel like I have a lot of potential, and I'm going to show it.
Yeah, sure.
Boxing is a funny old game because the fighter has to believe in himself when nobody else does. And I never saw anybody do anything difficult by telling themselves that they couldn't do it.
He believes he's going to be better than Inoue.
I would say that he is setting the bar exceptionally high for himself if that's what his aim is, because Naoya Inoue at age 30 is already a huge draw in his own country.
Huge.
Moreover, will Kermel Moton by age 30 be as accomplished a fighter as Inoue is? Because you're saying that you're going to be better than him. Better in what way?
You're talking skills, right?
There's only one way to prove that. Are you going to do at featherweight, super featherweight, lightweight, and super lightweight? Are you going to do at those weights what he's done at 4 weights?
Are you?
It's a legitimate question when you make a statement like that you feel you're going to be better than he is. I won't begrudge a 17-year-old unbeaten up-and-comer his ambition.
But I don't have any illusions about him either.
Floyd Mayweather, whose company promotes Moton, has mentored Moton since he was a child. He wasn't as bold as his young, ambitious boxer when asked about Stevenson's comparison, yet the undefeated 5-division champion did note that Inoue versus Moton might be a fight that eventually gets put together. I can't really say who his style is like, Mayweather said regarding Moton. You know, that kid from Japan, he's a hell of a fighter. And what we're doing in today's time, we're making dream matches. No different from when we done the Mayweather versus Canelo fight. We done the Mayweather versus McGregor. We done the Mayweather versus Pacquiao. We do the biggest matches out there. So in due time, we never know. It can be Moton, and don't really know how to pronounce his name in reference to Naoya Inoue.
Inoue versus Moton is not a realistic fight.
By any stretch, because at this stage in his career, Inoue isn't just a champion. There are many, many champions, but he's not just a champion. He's a 4-division champion, a former undisputed champion, and a current reigning unified champion. He is in a very, very different place in his career to Moton, who by the time he's ready to take on world-class fighters, he may be leaving the featherweight division. If he's at featherweight now, at 17 years old, as his body begins to grow, he's gonna have to move up.
He literally just made his pro debut this past Saturday.
How long do you think it would take him to get ready for somebody like Naoya Inoue? A year? 2 years? Because as soon as a year or 2 years, Inoue could be there, right there with him, at featherweight.
Do you think a kid who's still wet behind the ears, a 17-year-old, you think he's gonna be ready for Inoue in a year? 2 years?
I think Floyd's full of shit. And I think that given what we saw in Floyd Mayweather's handling of Gervonta Davis's career, how they wrapped him in a cocoon, it's not likely that Kermel Moton,
He's not gonna do what Inoue did.
because of the politics. If most of the belts are at top rank, or some of them are at top rank and some of them are at matchroom, anywhere in between 126, 130, and 135, what have you, what are the odds that Floyd Mayweather will allow Kermel to fight for those belts? He didn't let Gervonta do it.
Gervonta's almost 30. He's never unified a title.
Never been undisputed, never held the Ring Magazine title, was never lineal champion at any weight he's campaigned.
For this kid to surpass Inoue, that's the kind of stuff he would have to do.
And I'm supposed to believe Floyd's gonna let him do it.